You're listening to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio with Rick Thompson, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, welcome to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio. I am your host, Rick Thompson. This show is about sobriety and recovery. Each week, we discuss a different topic relating to addiction with the aim that you can gain some insight, guidance, and hope from our discussions. We focus the show in 3 different segments. 1, the viewpoint of the families dealing with the family members suffering from alcoholism and addiction so they may assist them in obtaining treatment. 2, the psychological trauma and emotional damage alcoholics and addicts and their families experience. 3, the role of the insurance companies and associate providers and their part in the recovery process. Welcome to the broadcast. This is Rick Thompson. Welcome to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio. The topic for tonight's show is opiate use in adolescents and the byproducts that addiction brings to them. Tonight we have a very special guest in the studio, Jerry Ross, who's not only a man in recovery but is also an unhinged trapeze artist. He also provides a personal take on opiate, substance, and alcohol abuse prevention to anyone who will listen. Jerry is also the CEO of Take 12 Productions and is in the business of entertainment consulting. Welcome to the show, Jerry. How are you?
I'm good. That was such a serious opening.
I know it was.
It's very...
Well, I have to look like I'm trying to be serious about something because we know in my normal life I'm serious about nothing.
All right, Ricky, what do we do today?
Well, I would like to dedicate this show to Cameron H. I would like to keep her last name out of this for her anonymity. She is a 20-year-old young woman who had been, there's no really easy way to say this, addicted to opiates for a while. And she was ready to go into treatment, and she dropped off the radar screen for about 2 hours, and her father calls me, Kurt, who has been a guest on our show, telling me that she is in the emergency room. They've got her in ICU. Another call comes. She has sepsis, or septicemia, if that's the correct pronunciation. Now, what that means is that it's also known as blood poisoning, and it is a life-threatening condition whereby a large number of toxic bacterium are present in the bloodstream. This condition occurs when a person has an infected site, such as an injecting point, large wound, or from some other conditions like a urinary tract disease. The infectious bacteria from the infection site enters the bloodstream and overcomes the body, causing whole body inflammation. Without immediate and aggressive treatment, sepsis may develop into multiple organ dysfunction and death. Well, they went in and took a look at her after an MRI and found out that she had one of her heart valves had been infested by this bacteria. And they had to give her an induced coma. Then they had to go in and they had to open her up and perform open heart surgery on this young woman and replace the heart valve with tissue. She's getting better. She's getting stronger. But my point's obvious. This is the end result of bad decision making and placing yourself in danger in a situation where you're injecting heroin into your bloodstream. Jerry, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it goes to the, it could go back to the war on drugs. That wonderful concept that came up sometime in the late 60s, early 70s, the war on drugs. And there have been a number of other countries that have treated this much differently. They've provided addicts with clean needles. They have taken being a drug addict off of the illegal column. And they've treated it as it is, which is a disease. I think the most radical example of that is Portugal. You could probably look at that, and they've had a very, very large success rate in stemming not only of intravenous diseases, diseases caused by intravenous using, but also crime rate. Crime rate's gone down tremendously because these kids are not having to burglarize houses. They're not having to mug people in order to carry on their habit.
Right.
Now, this is not a for me, I'm not saying it's okay to use drugs, but what I am saying is that it's not okay to treat drug users as criminals. I think I just read an article where the Prime Minister of Canada just released all of the prisoners in their prisons that were in there for marijuana use.
Right.
And
which they should.
Yeah. And if the same thing happened in the U.S., if we treated it as a disease rather than a crime, you would see a number of our prisons empty out. But the fact is that there's too much money behind these prisons.
True.
These are privately run.
They are now, yeah.
And one more time, the American people are suffering generally because of large corporations. One more time. And it's just going to become more of a problem unless we look at other examples and stop turning a blind eye to what has been successful in other countries and other cultures.
Right.
Now, the need to use is what I'm concerned with. That's where the solution lies. It's not in the fact that, poor little Cameron is just one of thousands.
Yes, that's true.
And this is happening day in and day out. The reason being, obviously, is because, number one, these kids are sharing needles because they're not able to get their hands on new, clean, sterile needles and rigs and whatever. And again, I am not promoting the use of drugs now, but I'm saying if it's there, then let's deal with it properly. And with that attitude, I also believe that if we're more open about what's going on, if we're more concerned about these kids, which is where this is starting now, and it's starting at a much earlier age than when I was a kid, if we can deal with that and be as open and compassionate about it, I think it would be easier for these kids to wind up on the front of a door, knocking on it, saying, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I need some help. Can you help me? And more than that, that's not happening now. And it's not happening because of the attitudes that we've installed in the majority of people in this country.
Right, the fear of confrontation and judgment.
Absolutely.
And so forth. Yeah.
Especially that judgment.
Right, and it starts out, I think, you've got peer pressure going on. You've got, you want to be with the cool kids. The cool kids are hammering drugs in their arms, and then the kids get sucked into it, and before they know it, they know it, they're underwater.
Well, it also goes back to what I believe in terms of what's going on in, generally with the families in the United States. The family unit in the U.S. has just about exploded.
Yeah, that's true.
When these kids find other kids of like and kind with the same fears and the same second thoughts about what they're doing and how they're doing and if they stack up to the norm and all of this, and they start using, well, that using group becomes a family. And that's where they get their identity from. That's where they get their security from, is because they've got this loosely knit group of friends, quote unquote, that are using and drinking with them, and they can count on.
As a support group.
Because there's nothing going on at home.
Right.
There's no compassion at home. There's no love at home for the most part. Mom and dad are too busy trying to make ends meet, and they just don't have time. They don't have the wherewithal to show these kids compassion, love, education, and it's become a problem that I believe nobody, at least nobody that's going to be in power. I'm not hearing anybody talk about this. I'm not hearing anybody talk about family values anymore. I'm not hearing them talk about the fact that the more education that we can give children, the more they're going to become enlightened, and the less they're going to probably need to use and drink, because they're not going to be so clueless about what's going on with them. We have parents that are not teaching kids about not only success but failure as well. They're not teaching kids what empathy is and what compassion is.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's getting larger and larger and larger. And I think we're going to see even more incidents like what's going on with Cameron because of where this is going to go ultimately.
Yeah, there's not a lot of support for anything in the home. People are so, I think, my observation is they're so fear-based of how they're going to pay the mortgage, how they're going to get this, where are we going to be in 10 years, and not focusing on the immediate issues of their babies. And these kids are being overlooked. And when that type of infrastructure dissipates, there's nothing that's going to come out of that's going to be positive. It's going to be, the kids are going to drift wherever they feel comfortable.
Absolutely.
Or they feel safe, even into a place that's a danger zone because they don't know it's a danger zone because they haven't been sat down and talked to. We're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back. I would like to take a moment and talk to you about the Villa Treatment Center. Their integrated substance abuse and dual diagnoses program rests on foundational principles of personal responsibility, structure, and service. Whether you are at the beginning of your recovery journey or farther along the road, the Villa Treatment Center offers an individual plan to suit all of your recovery needs. Detoxification by doctors specializing in addiction medicine, residential treatment, transitional living, day treatment, and full care outpatient services are available. Please call 818-505-6900 for further information. That's 818-505-6900 and begin your recovery now. The website for Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio is www.latalkradio.com. Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio is on Channel 1. We are broadcasting live from our studios every Sunday at 6 p.m. West Coast time. All of our shows are archived on the www.latalkradio.com site and can be accessed 24/7. Our call number is 323-203-0815. That's 323-203-0815. And now back to our show. Jerry, I have a question. What do you feel are the most important positive growth aspects of being in recovery?
God, I don't know where to start with that. The positive growth aspects. Well, first of all, meeting yourself. I was talking with somebody that's very close with me, and I think one of the major breakthroughs for me was being able to look at that guy in the mirror and say, "Hey, I'm starting to like you."
Right. That's good.
Now, growing up, I had never done that. I was sober and clean for 11 years, and I was restless, irritable, and discontent. And then when I was 12 years old, I found dope, and it was home, because I had none of that growing up. I mean, my parents were not horrible parents. Mom wasn't a slut. Pop wasn't a wife beater. They did the best they knew how. But it fell far short of teaching me anything about, again, just, values of other human beings. In my house, it was what goes on here stays in this house. You don't take it out of the house, and that's that for that. Everything is fine if anybody asks.
Right.
And so taking that as a major learning step in my when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, when I left home, it was still, you don't tell anybody about what's going on inside.
Did you ever want to?
No, I never thought about it, really, because it wasn't part of my life. It had never. telling somebody what was going on with me had never come up. That's just the childhood I had. Anybody asked me how things were, I would say fine, regardless of what the hell was going on.
I understand that.
And then throughout my teens, and this was, again, I was a child of the 60s, so, life just blew up. All of the bullshit that came down in the 50s about how family life was supposed to be, Leave It to Beaver, and all of that horse shit was just blown out of the water.
Right.
And here we were, teenagers, with the world open to us. And we could do anything we wanted, we found out.
Yes.
And we did, right?
Yes.
And it was a lot of mistakes going on. But at the same time, again, it was the tribal attitude, it was the tribal instinct, and you hung with like and kind. And so the people I came up with used just like me, drank just like me, had insecurities just like me, and had the bravado, and I should say false bravado, to take on just about anything. And some grew out of it, most didn't. And so there was a lot of trips to the ER for most of the people I knew, including myself. I can tell you that one time I was in the ER, I had OD'd. I'll never forget, the doctor came in, they had pumped me full of charcoal to get whatever was in there out.
Right.
And they put me in a room in ICU, and the doctor came in, and I looked up at him, and I said, "So, what's going on, Doc?"
Nice.
And he looked down at me, and he said, "Why do you people waste my time?" He said, "I don't know what's going on. If you live for the next 24 hours, we'll talk about that tomorrow." And he walked out of the room. What I did is I took the IV tree with me. I went into the bathroom, sat down on the toilet, and had a smoke, and thought, I'm not having a good day here.
Yeah. Well, that's a vision for you right there.
That's it. That's it. So with that type of upbringing, with that type of attitude, you're blind. You're just blind to what's really going on. And so when I got to the program, it was like being born and raised in a cardboard box. Somebody asks you to describe the universe, you describe the inside of a cardboard box.
Right.
Because that's what you know.
That's what you know.
Until somebody opens the top of it, and then you look at the universe and you say, Jesus Christ, look at this. And then you have to be taught how to live in it. And that's what the program did for me. It taught me how to live in it, but then also there was a few people that would talk about how they felt. But they weren't talking about how they felt as victims. They were talking about how they felt as human beings. And they were attractive to me. And it took quite a journey for me to take that leap of faith to become one of those people that could talk about their feelings. And it wasn't until just about 5 years ago for me. And I'm talking about getting sober in 90, going out in 2010, getting back in 2011, and since then I've been sober again. But this time, as I said, it's been the willingness to talk and feel like a human being. And what I've done is I've seen people that I admire because of their strength, because of their resolve, and because they're talking about how they're feeling without it being, without it having that tinge of green victim, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, we have a tendency in the initially to carry around that victim and show up to everybody. But there's a point I think that we all get to, that has to stop. Because if you don't stop being a victim, then you're never going to get any better. You're never going to grow. I mean, you're just going to stand there and lay in your own piss. I mean, basically, that's pretty much it.
Well, I was just thinking about a statement somebody made that went in one ear and out the other. So I can't even think about it. I know what it was. I heard an old guy a number of years ago, and he was talking about addiction, but it also smacked of a great deal of truth to a general malaise of people, which is there's a certain perverted comfort in familiar pain.
True.
Now, that familiar comfort that comfort in familiar pain comes in with the fact of, I know the pain. Now if I step out of it, I don't know where that's going to go or what that's going to look like.
Which is scarier than being in the pain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would rather stay in the victim mode, knowing what I'm talking about, than stepping out of that to find out possibly a different way of not having to feel the pain.
Living differently.
Exactly.
Right.
Because at that point, I'm taking a gamble here.
Big one. Yeah.
Well, when you look at it, really, how much of a gamble is it?
It's not that big of a gamble. I mean, after we, like you and I, have been through it, and now that we're on the other side of it, you look back and you go, God, I wish I would have done this so many years ago. But, then again, you're not ready until you're ready. So
That's true. Or until somebody asks you, what are you afraid of? You afraid of looking bad? I mean, I don't know how much worse I could have looked. Than being on that
visuals
floor.
Going through my mind too about where I was at when I came in.
Right. So I don't know how much worse I could look.
Yeah.
And when I think about it in those terms, laying myself out there right now doesn't seem so bad.
Right. Yeah.
Because then I become authentic. I become a transparent human being that somebody can approach and go, hey, can you possibly help me? Do you know anything about how I'm feeling? Like, this is what I'm feeling. And I can listen to them, and I can say, I got a little experience with that. Let me tell you what happened with me. Or, I don't personally have experience with that, but I may know somebody that does. Now, for me, that is huge. If I could help, I used to think, Jesus, man, if I help a few people out in this world, then when I die, it'll all be worth it. If I help just one person out,
right.
And then that goes back to the one day at a time philosophy, which I rarely ever hold on to.
Yeah, I know it's hard to stay there. It really is. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back. I would like to take a moment and talk to you about the Villa Treatment Center. Their integrated substance abuse and dual diagnoses program rests on foundational principles of personal responsibility, structure, and service. Whether you are at the beginning of your recovery journey or farther along the road, the Villa Treatment Center offers an individual plan to suit all of your recovery needs. Detoxification by doctors specializing in addiction medicine, residential treatment, transitional living, day treatment, and full care outpatient services are available. Please call 818-505-6900 for further information. That's 818-505-6900 and begin your recovery now. The website for Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio is www.latalkradio.com. Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio is on Channel 1. We are broadcasting live from our studios every Sunday at 6 p.m. West Coast time. All of our shows are archived on the www.latalkradio.com site and can be accessed 24/7. Our call number is 323-203-0815. That's 323-203-0815. And now back to our show. Okay, and we're back. I want to talk about the symptoms just for a minute of septicemia. If I don't even know if I'm saying this right. I tried to look that up and I couldn't find it, so we just have to deal with what I've got in my head. The symptoms are varied, but typically include the following: high fever, abrupt changes to mental status, areas of red or discolored skin, low blood pressure, respiratory distress or changes to breathing, increased heart rate, chills. A person suffering from sepsis will appear unwell, pale, and disoriented. In some cases, a person will begin to go into shock, which is symptomatic of their body undergoing a massive toxicity infection. Anyone suspected of having septicemia should immediately seek medical treatment. The risk of sepsis damaging internal organs and causing death is very high.
Shall I read the treatment? For what I'm reading is septicemia.
Septicemia.
Let me read the treatment for it.
Okay, thank you.
Aggressive treatment by doctors is required to treat septicemia due to the life-threatening aspect of the condition. A patient will be given high doses of strong antibiotics to kill the toxic bacteria in the body. The site of initial infection may be operated on and infected blood, pus, tissue removed.
Lovely.
In some cases, patients will also have to be placed on a vasopressor to increase the blood pressure, and strong painkillers and sedatives administered to treat pain. Patients may also require fluids to be administered, treatment in intensive care, and even dialysis to treat the condition. Adequate nutrition is also required to ensure the patient will fully recover. Sounds like a vacation, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And the short-term effects are a rush, depressed respiration, clouded mental functioning, which is what I'm experiencing now, nausea and vomiting, suppression of pain, and spontaneous abortion. And that's...
Now, the long-term effects is addiction, infectious disease, i.e., e.g., I should say, HIV, hepatitis B and C, collapsed veins, bacterial infections, abscesses, infection of the heart lining and valves, arthritis and other rheumatological problems, liver and kidney disease. So we're talking about a day in the park here, people.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where when you got it, you know it. And the fact is that I don't mean to make light of it. It's not something that's light, but it is something that we can stem. And it starts with us. It starts right here in the home. If you're listening to this, you have a kid that's coming up on their teen years or even a little younger. Talk to them, for God's sakes. Ask them what's going on with them, and let them be able to tell you what's going on with them without you judging them. It is so important that these kids have an outlet, because if you don't do it, they've got friends that will listen to them, and their friends may not always have the best solution. That's all there is to it. One of the and I know that the Villa is a big backer of this show, but one of the and I'm just going to talk.
Sure, go right ahead.
Is one of the best programs that I've seen for the younger addicts and alcoholics, and they don't even have to be addicts and alcoholics in the clinical sense. They've got kids there that are addicted to these online games now.
Yeah, that's
Look what's going on with this Pokemon crap. But anyway, it's a place called Sober College, and what they've done is they've taken and they've melded sobriety, sober living, and arts, as well as college credit courses with college credit, I should say, so that these kids just aren't going to someplace, getting dried out, and then taken to meetings every day of the week until they leave. They're dealing with, for instance, a lot of these kids do not know how to deal with feelings that they get from using drugs. They get a certain feeling off of these drugs, or they use drugs to stop feeling a certain way. Mm-hmm. And what they deal with here is that feeling and how to deal with that feeling sober. So they're taking these kids, they take them surfing and the elation of that, or simulated skydiving, which is just...
To get them through their fear-based...
nuts.
Yeah, right.
Horses. They get them to ride frickin' horses. How did you feel about that? This is what we're... It is incredible how these clinicians have found certain activities that will mimic feelings and then talk these kids through those feelings sober.
Right.
So they finally go, geez, I can deal with this.
I can deal with this. I can deal with that. I can deal with this. I can deal with that.
And then at the same time, I'll tell you, one of the greatest things I saw was they have a talent night there, and these kids, some of them have never been up on the stage before. Some of them aren't very good. Some are great, and everything in between. But these kids get up there, and they do this. And my heart it swells because these kids are courageous.
Right.
These kids are getting up on that stage.
90% of it.
They're bearing themselves, and they're having a great time doing it. I can't tell you what a feeling that was for me to be able to watch that and think back when I was that age. You know, if I'd only had that.
Right.
You know?
Right. That would have eliminated a lot of the problem areas for us all.
Exactly.
Jerry, what is your concept in the overall in reference to the epidemic of opiate addiction pertaining to the youth, and how can you segue this into your concept of unconditional surrender, and how solution-oriented is this philosophy to you personally?
Jesus.
Come on, babe. Keep up.
God damn, man. Well, look.
Nobody said this interview was going to be easy.
Damn. First of all, heroin and opiates, they did for me what I couldn't do for myself. They did for me what my parents couldn't do for me. They did for me what society couldn't do for me. That's make me feel okay. And that's all I ever wanted anyway. I just wanted to feel okay. I wanted to feel right-sized in my skin. And you take that away from me, and what have you got? And that's the unknown. And it was unknown for me. But for me, I fell in with a group of guys that were sober. Most of them were in my business and were performers. I wasn't a performer, but a lot of these guys were. Mm-hmm. And so they'd been there. And they were talking about God while using the word fuck. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was just amazing to be able to blend those two.
Well, yeah.
And be serious about it.
Right.
And more than
not
that.
Be flippant.
But also be stand up about the whole thing. Mm-hmm. They were talking about God like he was a buddy.
Right.
And and I'd never heard that before. And so I wanted to be like these guys. And in order to be like these guys, I had to do what they were doing. I don't know what it takes for anybody besides myself. I know what it took for me. But to be able to give these people a chance, to be able to give these kids a chance, is what I believe the biggest hurdle to overcome now. You know, let's get more going to help these kids, to save some lives. You know, as a matter of fact, one of the kids I saw last year at a talent show who was just amazing. I mean, this guy, he wrote, he sang, and it was really good stuff. Well, he's no longer with us because he went out. He decided that for whatever reason, I don't know, whatever it was, and he OD'd, and he's gone. I just found out about this a couple weeks ago. It's a waste. It's an absolute waste. I think the kid was about 22 years old.
Right. You
get back to Cameron. Cameron's got a chance now.
Yes, she does. She has a chance. She's had to pay the price, and she's going to probably have a pacemaker installed in the next 48 hours, and she's got to deal with that the rest of her life. Well, that's but it's a daily reminder of the end result and how she was lucky not to end up on an embalming table.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
How has your recovery affected your business and the interactions between your business and others?
I've never gotten fired for being sober.
Right.
It affects my business big time. It used to be back in the day, when I was in music, for instance, used to walk in the studio and used to say, "All right, man, who's getting loaded here?" And they would have to stay. Now you walk into a studio, say, "Who's getting loaded here?" You got to go.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you got to go, right? Because
got to go.
Yeah, you've got to go because we don't want any part of that.
That's right. And so, my business, there's still, just like every place else in the entertainment business, there's still a lot of that going on. There's still people dropping left and right. Look what just happened to Prince. Look what happened to Philip Seymour Hoffman, for God's sakes.
Yep.
He had sobriety.
He had 20 plus years right before he.
I don't know how much he
Yeah,
had, but I
that's
knew he had gotten sober. The unique part of if there's a unique part of that, it's the fact that these people have yes men around them or yes women around them.
Yes, enablers.
And you cannot get around that. I have a very good friend who happens to be a very, very well-respected interventionist, and he has intervened on some of the biggest people in my business, and I'm talking about major names. And the one thing that he has always insisted is that the people got to go.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
The people got to go.
It's like Elvis.
This is going to
if
be
you
a
got rid of the
one-on-one.
Memphis Mafia, Elvis would have lived.
Probably.
Right.
So you get a lot of people being way too insulated by their hangers-on, by their posse.
Right.
And so it makes it very difficult to get through to these people. Just what a chance they're taking, not only with their career but with their lives. However, there has been a pervading attitude of let's stay sober now, guys. Instead of, I did a picture back in 1983 where the production company was so worried about two of the headliners in this movie that they built in a budget for cocaine on this movie. We used to walk out of there looking like kabuki dancers.
Kabuki dancers.
And
wow.
today that's not happening. That's not happening at all.
Right.
Well, they didn't want the two stars to go out on the street, try to cop and get busted. It was
in the middle of a film, yeah, because
Right.
then you got big problems.
Exactly.
Right, sure.
So they built that into that budget for that movie, but which they just released a re-release of a new version of that movie. I won't say what movie it was, but they just had an all-female cast.
Yeah, okay.
So,
wow.
But anyway,
yeah. That would explain a lot.
wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So there is more of an attitude of we don't want junkies around us. We don't want people getting loaded around us.
Right.
So
okay,
that's what's going on in my business, at least around me.
We're going to take a break.
I would like to take a moment and talk to you about the Villa Treatment Center. Their integrated substance abuse and dual diagnoses program rests on foundational principles of personal responsibility, structure, and service. Whether you are at the beginning of your recovery journey or farther along the road, the Villa Treatment Center offers an individual plan to suit all of your recovery needs. Detoxification by doctors specializing in addiction medicine, residential treatment, transitional living, day treatment, and full care outpatient services are available. Please call 818-505-6900 for further information. That's 818-505-6900 and begin your recovery now.
Okay, we're back. When did you first notice a change in the manner in which you dealt with others?
When I asked somebody how they were.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
This is, again, another true story for me. You get in the program, you start working these steps, and it's all about finding a power greater than yourself. And I'm listening to people share, and they're getting fucking parking spaces because of God. They're getting jobs because of God. And I'm not getting any of that. I'm just working the steps, and I'm not getting parking spaces. My socks don't even match. I can't even find a pair of socks that match. So I started asking some of the men in the stag I went to. I said, when did you have your first spiritual experience? And each one of them, to the man, said, well, when I wasn't thinking about myself. And I thought, well, I'm fucked.
Yeah, right, because that's all I do is think about myself.
That's it. And then somebody called me that I had met in the program years earlier when I was dropping in at the time. And I really liked this guy, and I had seen him come in the program. He got sober, moved out of his parents' place, got his own joint, met her.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
She moved in.
You bet.
And they got married. And then they moved, and I didn't hear from him after that. Now, this is 3 years in the future, and I get this phone call, and it's him. And I had probably moved 5 times since then, and had as many different numbers to call me on. And he found my number and called me to tell me that he and his wife were going to have a kid. He wanted me to know. Now, I'd been sober probably 45, 50 days. And I listened to him, and I just got this feeling. And I got off the phone with him. I called my sponsor, and I said, hey, Scott, listen, man, I just got to tell you, this guy calls me, he tells me, and this is how I'm feeling. Scott said, wait a minute. He said, you weren't wondering when you were going to get yours? And I said, well, no. He said, well, Ross, you might be experiencing some spirituality here.
Yeah, right. All of a sudden, your thought changed.
It made sense to me, finally, because I wasn't thinking about me. And that was a breakthrough for me spiritually.
Okay.
There's my deal.
Do you, and I had a bit of an issue with this when I first got sober. Do you feel that you can openly communicate with people from your heart and still be able to protect yourself?
What do I have to protect myself from? What are they going to do? They can't take me. They can't take me. You know, now, the one part of me is the sum total of my total life experience. Okay, That's already happened. That's done. You can't take that. But the real me is that which isn't, and you can't touch that. That is where my spiritual road has led me, and that's something that nobody can take. So, where's the gamble? What, again, and it's said so many times it's become a trite expression, but I am a spiritual being with a human condition. And it's taken me so long to believe that. I'd heard it for years and years and years, and then I had to do something. I had to take some action. And I saw a guy I have known for years and years and years who was one of the angriest men I had ever met in my life.
Do we both know him?
Yes, we do. Okay. And so, one day I'm watching him and I'm talking to him, and I noticed there's something different going on. And I said, hey, man, I said, what the fuck? You're a different guy. What the hell's going on?
Where'd you go?
He started to meditate. But he went to a man that was a teacher of meditation. And I thought, well, Jesus, I got to try that, because when I got back 5 years ago, my main goal was to find that spiritual foundation, and I had been looking and trying this and trying that, and nothing. Then I saw this guy, and I thought, well, I got to talk to this guy, and I talked to him. I talked to his teacher. His teacher taught me, and it turned my life around spiritually. And so today, now I'm not walking on water. I haven't sewn up my fanny and made the bathroom a shrine. But the fact is that I'm a much better man than I've ever been before. And it's because of this spiritual path that I was taught.
Okay. Can you give us an idea of your concept of a daily reprieve through surrender and acceptance, and how this has helped you in dealing with others?
One more time.
Can you give us an idea of your concept of a daily reprieve through surrender and acceptance, and how has this helped you in dealing with others?
Well, God. Being able to take somebody at face value and stop looking underneath the layers. Because every time I try to look underneath the layers of somebody, I see something that really isn't there. Until it's revealed to me by them, I don't know. And I have to keep that attitude, because I can I can walk into a room and generalize the shit out of the group. I can look at a group and let you know just what you're all about, and I'm always wrong. So for me to be able to let other people show me who they want me to see is is a big plus for me.
Okay.
Big plus. Just wanted to get something else out. And I'm going to take just a moment about this because I'm driven by it. I happened on a social network on a friend of mine who's a PhD, and he works with people that are having a problem drinking, but they don't want to cease drinking. So he's dealing with moderation and trying to coach them in moderation, which I keep my hands out of. He's a friend. I love him as a human being. I do not believe that there's moderation, but again, I'm not clinical. But anyway, I happened to, he posted something that he had been interviewed about by a woman. Let me see. Her name is Monica Richardson, and she has made a documentary called The 13th Step. Mm-hmm. Now, let me just tell you, it exposes the dark underbelly of the most revered self-help groups, Alcoholics Anonymous. The courts are plea-dealing violent offenders and sex offenders to AA meetings, and women are getting murdered and raped. Now, this is the headline for this fucking movie. Let me tell you something. This is the biggest bunch of horse shit. You talk about a victim. This woman, now, basically, I don't know why I use that word, basically, but what it comes down to is a few years ago, a gal and a guy hooked up in the program. The guy was violent. They had been a couple for quite a while, I think, maybe, 6 months, a year, whatever it was. And I guess the dude started to use again. He killed her.
Right, I remember.
It was a big deal.
Right.
And the parents went after Alcoholics Anonymous, which to me is just ridiculous. Now, in this post, because I reacted to it in a very, I wasn't kind to this woman,
right,
in what I wrote, and I asked her, why didn't you go? Why didn't you try to expose the Boy Scouts of America, for God's sakes? They've got a whole bunch of things going on.
Right,
there.
which are
but what about the Catholic Church? Or how about the Elks Club? The Masons, that would be a good thing to go to.
The Elks
right?
Club?
Really? Why don't you go to them? What are you picking on it? So anyway, the PhD tries to diffuse this interaction between her and I, and he says, well, I think that we would agree that AA may have to come up with a new system. And I just thought,
you can't even go there.
This guy's got a PhD, and he's saying he's got a new system. Mm-hmm. There's no system. And then I made the remark that the program is pure. The program in and of itself is pure. It's the people,
right?
And I've got a lot of energy around this. I think it's and I told her flat out. I said, "This is a hell of a way to try to make $1."
Yeah, really.
Out of all the millions of people that AA has helped. Anyway, I'm done with my rant.
Well, it was very interesting.
Yeah,
because I didn't even know this movie was coming out. Jerry, thank you for taking the time to spend the evening with us and sharing your story,
for your
information. And all I can say to any young person that's got an opiate problem and you're injecting drugs into your veins, just stop it. Try to stop. Go to a hospital. Just tell them to lock you up. If you don't have any money, walk in there and tell them you're going to kill yourself if they don't put you in. They got to take you in. I'm not supposed to say this, but I don't care because I'd rather see you in a place where you're safe than find out that, somebody has died behind a dumpster somewhere. Because that's the last thing all of us want. We are at the end of this week's show, but make sure to tune in next week for another hour of reverberating Recovery Talk Radio. Again, I would like to thank Jerry for sharing his story with us. Our mission is to provide a safe platform for those who are suffering from various forms of addiction. We're just people willing to listen and offer suggestions to those in crisis. Sleep well, Cameron. And now we will leave you with the words of the late, great John Flynn.
Disappointment. Disappointment is the caboose on the tootsie train of expectation. Anything you want from anybody, you give them what you want from them. It's the only way you're going to get it. Life is about giving, not getting. Day at a time.
Thank you, John, and thank you for listening. Say goodnight, Jerry.
Good night, Jerry.
Good night, and good luck.
You're listening to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio with Rick Thompson, only on LA Talk Radio.